Starting in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Click to Close podcast
with
Preston Guyton
and Travis
Halverson.
You're getting a little angry over there.
I know. I just fucking my muscles, dude. They're getting huge, dude. I'm going to the gym now every morning.
Well, let's talk about that workout with me. How fun was it?
I wanted to die. Did you like my comment when I said, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the 75 hard. You're like, Travis, you haven't gone to the gym in 7 years. Why would you start with that?
Yeah, it's
What'd you say? You're like, it's like starting the marathon.
Yeah, I said nobody runs 5 miles the first day when they're training for a marathon or 10 miles.
I'm doing a marathon. All right, 10 miles. Here it is.
10 miles day one.
I would die. I walked day one, and I was like, this is sore. I'm sore. This is brutal.
You know, John posted about that the other day, a week ago, or whatever it was. And he said a lot of times people, when they fail, they'll come up with these crazy goals that are based on what somebody else is doing.
Yep.
And they don't realize what somebody else is doing now. They sure as hell didn't start at that place. You know, and so you basically jump in there to do something like you said, 75 hard, you would have ended up hurting yourself.
I would have died.
You would hurt yourself probably like 4th to 5th day, 2 workouts a day, 75 days straight, which is really working out too much. Like that is abusing your body.
That is, it's
like
insane.
your muscles can't even recover because you're not taking any time off.
Oh my gosh.
Unless you're like pumping yourself full of all kind of stuff that you're like growing anyway. But yeah, man, that's, you know, thinking about that, like when with goals, a lot of times people create a goal based on somebody else's schedule and they end up failing.
Yeah, I see other people accomplish things. I'm like, you know what? I can do it. And I'm like, I shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't even try and do that. That seems
Well, it's same like
awful.
prospecting. People struggle with prospecting, and you know, then they're like, okay, I'm going to start prospecting. I'm going to do this 8 to 11 every day. I'm going to jump in there. I'm like, how about start with 15 minutes? You haven't even called 15 minutes yet, and you're going to jump into 3 hours. You know, it's
I
like
have this
start
massive
with,
database.
like,
Where do you start?
dip your toes in the water.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
that is not what we're talking about.
No,
today,
we're not
though.
going to talk
What are we
about it.
talking
We'll
about?
talk about it another time.
Do you want me to tell you what we're talking
Please
about?
tell me what we're talking about.
You don't know?
No. You said we're going to talk. You got something in your head.
Yeah. So what do you see? Because we speak to a lot of leaders. What do you see the separation in the leaders that are having success today to the leaders that are struggling?
Oh, dude, they're in it.
In it.
They're in it every day. In it to win it, but like they're in it. Like Kelly, bro.
In it.
Kelly, if you hear this, Kelly, I don't know if you listen to any of this, but Kelly, you're a dog and I love you.
Yes.
Kelly is in it.
And she's full of shit. She's like, I got paralysis for the last 4 years. I'm like, really? Let's look. You open a real estate company. You open a property management company with over 200 or 300 doors, whatever the number is.
Is she
you
really?
have a mortgage company now that you opened a year ago. There's no paralysis there over the last 4 years.
Killing it, man.
Yeah,
she makes me
But
laugh.
struggled. I mean, leadership and, you know, owning a business.
I told her, I said, I would have loved you to be my CEO.
Is a struggle. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's why I love those CEO meetings, because I'm always just like, I love asking the journey of like how you got into that position and like, how'd you get here? But then it's always funny to me because it's like, I mean, obviously like met with a lot of them, like just even like in the past years and stuff. I'm just like, I don't know if you're going to be here for a much longer if you don't like pivot or you don't change your mindset. Like there's so many leaders that are just like, oh man, I feel like they let their sales team run them. And I'm like, dude, you can't.
A lot of times they build systems off of stuff they used to do 10 years ago and they haven't stepped in in it themselves. So what we see a lot of leaders doing now that are having success, even things like call days, like they'll hop in the middle of it and make phone calls.
Matt Smith, man.
Yeah, Matt Smith is doing it. Yeah, you know, Ryan Young would fellow. I mean, he's
doing 30 listings in 30 days.
30 listings in 30 days. So he's doing listing appointment calls every day.
Yeah.
You know, looking at ways to use fellow as a way to generate listing appointments.
Yeah, he's
I think he had. Have you seen any of those calls?
No, trust me. I've even messaged on him. Day 1, he had 3 appointments.
He had 3
Day
appointments.
2, 0.
Zero.
And day 3, he's like ended with 1 at like the very last minute.
Yeah.
But that's what I even commented on. I said, listen, man, it's great that you're doing that. And it's like, but you're 3 out of 30. You're not like you got 3 day 1, which is why you do like the long-term mindset goal. You know what I mean? It's like you got 3 day 1, so you could get 0 on day 2. You know what I mean? And you're still ahead of the curve. So it's like you're not 0 day 2.
He felt beat up day 2.
But that's how it is, man. I used to do that all the time.
He's showing the truth. Like you see these people with 50 listings, 100 listings. They're doing this, 8 to 11 window is the winner's morning. A lot of them call it. And they've been doing that for year after year after year after year. To jump in there and, it'd be your first time. I mean, you don't have to, some people jump right into it. But if you jump right into it, a lot of times you'll fail because you haven't been doing it.
Yeah. Things have changed. I mean, obviously, like even talking what we were talking about, like robo-dialing and stuff, like that was not a thing 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like these AI calling bots, all this stuff, like AI texting and everything like that. Like if you don't even use that stuff,
it's not a thing anymore either.
Yeah, it's not a thing anymore either. But
I mean, it is. But like FCC, I was just reading it to you. In February, they AI calling and robocalling are pretty much the same guidelines and restrictions. So you can't use it unless somebody's opted in for that phone call.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. I mean, a lot of people will just like buy a list and throw it through it and like, let's see what happens. It's like, how did you get the information? It's like, oh, we just bought this list.
Yeah, buy the list.
It's like, yeah, you can't do that. But that's also, I mean,
$10,000 fine.
That goes back to the fact of like being in it. Like CEOs today know like, oh, you can't do that shit. But like some CEOs are like, oh, I used to do this years ago. We just buy the list and just put it through someone. We'll just cold call it.
Well, think about it though. Years ago, you didn't have. I mean, depending on how far back you want to go, how'd you get a list? You didn't. I mean, before
Remember
like
Sammy Knight, he said he would go to the yellow pages and he'd rip the yellow page out. So nobody else had his lead gen list that week.
Yeah.
Just
go to the yellow pages.
That's what he said he would do. He'd go to the books.
Go to the phone book.
Go to the phone book and he would rip out the page so nobody else had his list.
Yeah. And then you could have your name excluded from the phone book.
That is crazy. I never even figured that you could do that.
Yeah.
I used to have to look people's phone numbers up. I still remember that.
In the phone book?
Yeah.
No way.
I swear. I was a little kid.
Wow. How old were you? 4?
6?
6. Why were you looking up people's phone numbers in a phone book when you were 6? Were you still calling in? You were an ISA at 6 years old?
Yeah, ISA at 6 years old.
That's crazy.
No, I just remember I was trying to find things. Pizza Hut.
Setting appointments for your mom.
Exactly.
Mom, I'm in here working.
Every time, just slaving away trying to do it.
Doing
it was great. It was great. But hey,
could you imagine? Could you imagine being an ISA when there was a rotary phone?
Dude, that's like it reminds me of the agents, right? Or like reminds me of the agents right now. They're like, oh, I'm doing lead gen just through my cell phone. And I'm like, what? Like they're like pulling up their cell phone, looking at the FUB number, and I'm like, that's miserable. What are you doing?
How many calls you can make with a rotary phone call?
Probably 50
in an hour.
In a day. Not an hour, especially if you have to double tap
going
too.
From like rotary to digits, was
your answer rate would be huge. Your answer rate would be through the roof.
Oh yeah, because nobody's calling.
No, because nobody has caller ID.
No, actually, it wouldn't be through the roof because everybody's outside enjoying the day. They weren't freaking sitting by a phone.
Sitting by a phone all the time.
TV.
Well, back to CEOs not being in it.
Yeah, sorry, another rabbit hole.
CEOs not being in it. I mean, like I said, being on with leaders more and more, like we see the ones that like really want to win, and they're like, yeah, we'll adopt that. Tell me what we got to do to make this thing work, or tell me what we got to pivot or how we run this, what we got to do. Like, tell me what's working. I'm like, that's an awesome mindset.
That's the thing you gotta have as a CEO and a leader is you got to be willing to make changes quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to give things time, but you also got to understand and realize you can't give them time forever. Like you got to be willing to shut it off and shut it down and move on and pivot and make changes, because the ones that are willing to do that are the ones that find success. I mean, whether it's, and sometimes you got to be careful to move, not to move too quick. Like so many people jumped on like AI is the future and this, that, and all of a sudden FCC has now restricted the calling of it to all these companies that build this AI platform and programs to make phone calls for you. Mm-hmm. That might be money wasted.
For sure. No, it's true. And the crazy thing to think about, though, is like, well, let me ask you, like, if you were a CEO and you were trying new things, how long would you usually give it before you shut it down? Like, no matter what the idea is. I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like, what I tell people when they're running pay-per-click, they really need to give it at least 6 months.
Really?
And they have to have system in place to do it. I mean, really, like the way we measure the effectiveness of pay-per-click is we'll look at like an 18-month or 24-month timeline and then pull the leads that came in the first 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then follow those leads based on the 6 months, because some of them might take a year to close, some might take 18 months to close. But that's a more realistic expectation of what's going to be, what it is and what the conversion rate is, because the majority of those leads that came in during that time should have closed if they were going to. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a better idea of what the conversion rate is.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't look like people are like, well, what's your conversion rate? You're like, I've been running pay-per-click for 6 months. Can't really give a real legit conversion rate because you don't know like what's going to happen with that lead 6 months from now, 12 months from now. Yeah, and then you look at it from a standpoint of like, lead gen. There's so many other things you could do with it, like, referrals and everything else. So it just depends on what it is. Like, really
depending
depends
on how much money you're putting into it, what you're expecting out of it, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and also if there's history, like if you're listening to the person that has done it and says, hey, you got to do this, just don't give up on it. But it just depends. I mean, it depends. And if you look at something for a year and you've spent a fortune on it, and it might not be what you're doing. It might be the way you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And like I said, I always tell people with like an ISA department, if you don't have a contract within the first 90 days, like you can see that it's going to be kind of an uphill battle. But I mean, if you get a contract within the first 90 days of your ISA department, safe to say you're going to get another one. Like should be getting that 2 next 90 days. You know what I mean? Like within the next 30 days, you get 2. And I always tell people, if you have an ISA department, you should be getting 5 to 6 to upwards of 8 to 12 sometimes a year.
God,
if it's a good team.
I missed 2 years ago.
Why?
Just like I was just thinking back, of how hard it is to like convert buyer leads right now.
Yeah.
I remember in June of 2022.
June 2022, 2 years ago?
Was that 2 years? Yeah.
Yes, 2 years.
Yeah. We had 24 PPC leads go into contract.
Really?
Yes.
Just like that?
Well, it was crazy months. Like we were getting like 15 to 25. We just had an obnoxious month of like pay-per-click and company leads. It was like 24.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So that, man, it's crazy to think about that.
But think about that. Think about what 2022 was. It was just, we'll never see something like that again. I mean, it was, you're getting all real phone numbers. And I tell people like, a good market, you can get good phone numbers and good email addresses. A bad market, you can get bad phone numbers, bad email addresses. And like every email address was good. Every phone number was good. You get people on the phone because they were all wanting to buy. And they knew like, if I don't put an offer on this house right away, that there were so many like putting in offers on properties they never even looked at, they never even saw. So, but yeah, it was crazy.
So, I mean, is it still something like right now? Like, what are we seeing more of right now? I mean, obviously this market we're in, is it just not a lot of good phone numbers?
No, I mean, we still get about 60 to 70%, which is a good number. It really depends on the system, though. It's like some platforms you see less good phone numbers. Some of them you see better good phone numbers. And there's ways around that. Like if you get a good email address, there's a way to get good phone numbers. But now, like if people are using, a social registration saying they're using Apple, you're not even getting an email address anymore, but you're getting a phone number. So if you get a phone number and no email address, then you could obviously text the phone number and try to get a good email address because Apple passes a relay email, and that doesn't always work.
Really?
Yeah.
What's a relay email?
So a relay email is if you are on Apple and you have a setting, you put it, you don't want to show your email address.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah, so it shows like whatever, some random information at applerelay.ide.com.
Something stupid.
So, but it's supposed to send to the email, but sometimes it bounces back because the email they have associated with their Apple ID is not the one. Not a good email. It's just weird.
Jeez. There's a lot of cool stuff that you have to go into, though. I mean, like, even if you think about it, how many CEOs have you met with that have tried to cut down on costs and stuff, like try to take on their own PPC? Have you had people do that before?
Yeah, they have. Not many do it effectively. It doesn't make sense. Like if you look at what you could pay somebody, like if you paid us to do it, depending on what program, we have a less expensive one now where we run everything in our account, which is $1,500 a month. So you look at that as $18,000 a year. Or if we set it up in your account and you own it, it's $36,000 a year. Either of those, you're not going to find a full-time pay-per-click person to run it.
Yeah.
You might get somebody that's half marketing, half this, half that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense usually to try to do that in-house.
Having someone split focus sometimes, even when no matter what, like I was just talking to someone today, he was like, oh, we're looking for another database manager, but we also need them to do like social media and do all that stuff. And I'm just like,
that is not the same thing.
That's tough. I was like, that would be really tough. I mean, that's the reason why a lot of these times.
Okay, I'm in the middle of building out something for social media marketing and a lead comes in. Do I stop what I'm doing to get on that? It's just like, you can't.
Yeah, you can't have people.
You got to focus on one thing.
Yeah, you can't have people change. That's the reason why I love being an ISA. It's like if I was your ISA, you wouldn't have asked me to, hey Travis, can you make this graphic for social media. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Like, I gotta do the calls. I gotta set appointments. What do you want from me? You know what I mean? You stay in your lane of what you're good at.
And
you
that's
stick
one
to
thing
it.
when you talk about leadership and something that is very important is, you know, you got to be slow to hire, quick to fire. Like
And you got to play to the strengths of the people that you hire.
That's right. And you don't always have to fire somebody. I mean, there's, you know, look at what their strengths are and put them in a position where those are their strengths and it makes sense. I see so many leaders and so many people that run businesses have a great person, a great employee. They're just in the wrong seat. You know, a lot of times you just got to move them to the right place. But also, if they're just a toxic person, you got to let them go. You can't let somebody in your office bring the whole office down. So those are things that I see a lot of people, well, they've been with us a long time. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's at some point you got to be willing to fire people and let them go. And sometimes you're doing them, you know, sometimes they're just unhappy because of where they are and you're doing them, you know, disservice by keeping them there.
Doing them harm, for sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's one of those things you got to really focus on is also not, when you do bring someone in, like you give them time to either work out or to see if it's actually going to fail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's sometimes we see a lot of times with ISA departments, like, he's just not a good fit. I'm like, what training did you give them? What coaching did you give them? Oh, I told them just to set appointments. I'm just like,
and go after hiring the best people. That's what I've always done. Go after hiring the best people. People are like, how do you always hire such good people? I'm like, because I go after hiring the best people.
oh, thanks.
You have to be, I'm just saying, you have to be willing to set, like you got to be a salesman yourself and you have to have belief in what you're building because then you could sell it to somebody else. And if they're in a job with, you know, they're happy, but you continue to stay in contact with them and sell them on what your vision is and everything else and make them part of it. Like everybody, you know, I love to bring people on, but also partner with them, you know, in an opportunity.
Oh, for sure.
And see them flourish. But, you know, when you're looking at like hiring people, go after all-stars, you know, and sell them on what you're doing and what you're building. And that's the way to build a successful business is build it with the right people. And, you know, don't always hire somebody that you got to train, you know, but you got to be able to sell yourself and what you're building to, you know, build something special.
Well, no, that's what I see a lot of the times with CEOs. They'll just like, they won't even be the person to hire them, bring them in, but then it's like, then they want to be the person to like coach them and train them. And I'm like,
they want to be, really. And a lot of times they want to hire just on price. Like, oh, I got a good deal on that. Well, how's that good deal working?
Yeah. No, it's, So, I mean, ultimately what it comes down to is if you're going to be a CEO and you're going to be someone that's going to make it through this market, or you're going to have a really good team that's going to be with you every step of the way, or you're not going to have problems to run into, you got to have your systems in place, your processes in place. You got to hire.
Yeah. Systems and processes, 100%.
Systems and processes, 100%, and hire the right people.
Yeah.
Hire killers. Hire all-stars.
Yes.
Build the Avengers.
Sell. Yeah, be able to sell what you're doing, what you're building. You know, that's a big part of it. I mean, I you know, for Easy Home Search, like some of the people that I'm hiring, I'm like, it's kind of scary. You know, the guy I'm talking to now, bringing on as a fractional CMO, his career is pretty outstanding.
His background.
Yeah, I see what he's done. I'm like, but I mean, it doesn't really frighten me. I just, you know.
You're just like, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
You're like, cool, that just empowers us more. So that's what it is.
We look really good.
Yeah. No, that's why it's always fun to see teams that grow and like really can produce and like turn into these absolute machines, because it's like you look at their leader and see who their leader is and you're just like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Look who they're following. Yeah, so that's cool. No, I love that. Awesome.
Sweet. That wraps it up.
Be smart with your business.
Be smart. Hire good people.
Hire good people.
Spend money.
Spend
on the right people.
Spend money on the right people. Don't get it cheap, or it will be cheap and it will suck. Yeah.
See y'all next time.
Bye.